a central concern in this case? What is an underlying issue here? What does the company need to address immediately? Probably more importantly than anything else.
The fact that it's going downsize, but it should give reasons as to why.
So, but even before that, no, there's an issue that the company is now faced with. What's that?
Financial.
Yes. Not that is an issue, but there's something else that goes to the heart of its reputation. Okay.
Not changing. Not changing towards modernism.
No, I think it's the communication to the public.
Okay, the communication is important, but why? What's been put into issue here? Trust, yes, but why? So it's a credibility issue. Underlying a lot of what's happening at this point in time, in addition to the actual crisis, is a credibility issue that has to be addressed immediately before you can tackle anything else. Because if credibility isn't restored, you're not going to succeed on the rest of it. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about leadership and understanding what's important, not just from a moral perspective, but from a business perspective. So why is credibility an issue? What actually happened here? What happened in this case to put credibility in issue? And whose credibility?
Like in Financial Times, it came that they were doing well, and then 2 weeks later.
Yeah, right? Okay, so perfect. So you've got the CEO making a statement that everything was fine. 2 weeks later, it's obvious that things are far from fine. The company's barely staying afloat. That decline didn't happen in 2 weeks. Essentially meaning the CEO knew that there was a problem, okay? It doesn't go from great to dismantling in 2 weeks, okay? That's not a company at this level. So are we suggesting that the CEO falsified this information intentionally? No, no one's saying that he intentionally tried to mislead. There could be many reasons why the CEO actually believed things were great, right? We've talked about low urgency, high complacency. We've talked about human denial, right? The CEO in this case is probably in a lot of denial, probably doesn't want to come to terms with the truth themselves. It doesn't even mean that it's intentional. It just means that they are unconsciously in denial. And so they're talking as though everything is great, but that's not a reflection of reality, right? We've talked about many humans are in denial of truth, of reality, day to day, especially if it's something that impacts your life. You don't want to believe that there's something wrong. Even when it's not intentionally deceitful, sometimes you just are in denial. And so that could have very well have been the case here with the CEO, sort of turning a blind eye, not paying attention, maybe a little bit negligent in realizing, the truth and the reality of what was going on. So the issue though is you're putting something out in the public and then there's a very different reality. And so when this goes back to inconsistencies, right? When you say something and something else happens that directly challenges the truth of what you initially said, your credibility is now impacted. People they're not gonna know what to believe because now you've shown me two different things, right? And the natural assumption, when you create an inconsistency in the minds of people, the natural assumption is to form a negative conclusion or assumption about why that inconsistency is there. So, he's a liar. He misled us. He's not credible. He's not trustworthy. That's the natural human response, okay? So the point is if you don't address the reason why you're not credible, the reason why there's this inconsistency as soon as possible, you are leaving more time for that inconsistency to permeate in the minds of people who are naturally going to form a negative assumption, right? And so when you address that, you mitigate against that process of people forming distrust. And you potentially are saving your reputation and credibility by being honest and straightforward. So especially in a case where your credibility is, your credibility is at risk or it's challenged, everything should drop for the sake of your priority being to clarify and, communicate in an honest and straightforward manner the information that's going to restore your credibility. And sometimes that means just taking ownership. If you made a mistake, you own it. You are honest about it. You take accountability for it. That's how people gain your trust. Not by covering it, not by stopping communication, not by running away from the problem, right? That does the opposite. That creates more of a distrust, okay? And people don't always understand these things, and they don't know that this is how the human mind receives and reacts to these types of behavior. So they are destructive in that way, right? Almost self-destructive, because they are not taking the steps to actually rectify the problem. Maybe they think they're rectifying the problem by avoiding or by running away from it or by stopping communication and just kind of hiding, but they're actually making it worse, right? This is how you make it worse. Because the natural human response is to expect the communication, to expect the clarity, to expect the honesty, the transparency, and taking accountability, right? So in this case, the absolute first thing the CEO should be doing is rewriting the memo, right? Acknowledging the mistakes that were made publicly, taking ownership over them, making it clear that, this is going to be a longer period of change, because that's the truth. You don't want to sort of set false expectations to suggest that, oh, we'll get over this in a month's time. Because again, now you're misleading, you're setting false reassurances, and when that doesn't happen, because it likely won't happen, you've now created another credibility issue for yourself, right? So again, being realistic in this case is much more important than being positive, right? So positivity is a good thing, but positivity can also be misleading, right? You can't compromise realism for positivity, okay? They have to sort of both coexist. And so, much like publicizing the problems that force the change, this is just about the honest communication effort, right? Everything that this company should be doing right now should deal with communicating in an honest and straightforward manner. And part of that is being transparent, taking ownership, taking responsibility, and letting the people know what's really going on. And the whole point is to restore trust and to restore credibility, because that credibility has already been damaged, okay? And so there was another comment, there was another suggestion in category 5. Number 1, cancel the memo. This should be the last thing you do, based on everything I just said. Yet nobody had this in category 5. Most people had this in category 1, saying this should be the first thing you do. Okay, so and I'm telling you it should be the last thing. So I need to know, why do you think that should be the first thing you do? Now, granted, you made this decision before I just said everything I said. So would anybody's opinion change based on what I had said, or do you maintain your position that the memo should be canceled and all communication should be stopped? I mean, this is what it's about. It's a free-flowing dialogue. So if you want to challenge my position, I welcome your challenge. This is what we're here for, right? So tell me, why do you think this should be in category 5? You all put it in 4 groups put it in category 1. Sorry, 4 groups said this should be done already. That's about 20 students. So why do you think this should be done? And it's not, I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with your answer. Like, this is what we're here to figure out. But I need to know what your thought process was, right? Why do you think canceling the memo and not distributing communications should be done? What was your thought process here? Yeah, tell me.
When I went through the memo, as a group, when we went through the memo, we felt that the words used were very, like they were sort of blaming the employees that you're not doing your job properly.
So that's where we had rewriting the memo. But this says cancel it and don't distribute any communications.
Because we felt that before, if they send it out just like that, it will probably cause a lot more.
It was already
problematic.
sent. So it was already sent, right? So you're saying we should cancel something after it was sent. What's the problem with that?
I think maybe we all misunderstood the context. We didn't realize that it had already gone out. Our understanding was that it's a draft and it should not be sent out the way it is, and it should be rewritten before any communications are sent out.
Okay, so what about, okay, let's say it hasn't been sent, but this is basically saying don't do a memo and don't communicate. That's what this is saying. You still think that should happen?
We still think that
At all?
we should cancel it and for now to not send it. Yeah.
Okay, but and then don't communicate at all. What's the problem with that?
Like only once.
Yeah, but okay, do you think firm plans for the details of the layoffs are gonna happen right away? Do you think this is gonna happen overnight, within 24 hours? No, okay. Why do I still think the communication needs to happen in less than 24 hours? That's my point. Why?
I think the logic would be to address the immediate concerns
What has
and
already
my
happened?
yeah.
So what did I just mention?
Yeah.
Why do you not have time to wait until plans for the details of the layoffs take place?
Because the
Why?
memo has been
We're in a
sent.
crisis. That
yeah.
could take weeks or
Weeks,
months.
yeah.
Why do we not have time to stop communication? Because there's a massive credibility issue at
and
play.
silence will be
Right?
taken
if
negatively.
you are silent in the face of your credibility being challenged,
Yeah.
every second of that silence increases the chance of a negative response to your
Negative
credibility, to
Yeah.
your position. And every second that people, the community, employees, consumers, stakeholders are forming negative assumptions about your credibility, that is decreasing the chance that you are going to survive this as a company, because your reputation is going down. Right, so remember, you have all the odds against you, because not only are you, it's not a company that's just like, this company is going down, essentially. So this is about not even just prospering, this is about survival, okay? And one of the most sensitive things you can do to yourself is put yourself in a position to lose trust when you are barely surviving, right? And so by not communicating at all, when you're in the face of crisis and you have a massive credibility issue, in the eyes of the public and in the eyes of your employees, you're just setting yourself up for not being able to climb out of the hole that you're already in. Does that make sense? Do you see? It's really important that we see this. Do you see why communication is so important? Particularly remembering what's at the heart of this issue in this case is this credibility issue, and the fact that the CEO looks like he's not being honest, and that's a huge problem. Because people are just going to wonder, what's up, right? You cancel that memo and don't communicate, people already know something's up. They already know there's a problem. They already see the inconsistent statements. So you're just sort of letting them sit there knowing that something's not right, but you're not telling them why. You're not telling them anything. And the longer they sit there knowing something's not right, they're going to form whatever belief they want, and it's probably going to be to the company's detriment, because that's how humans work, right? In the face of sort of these credibility issues. Okay, so that's really important to highlight, because I always find that interesting. But again, everyone okay? Do we need to flesh that out anymore? Just want to make sure that we all are on the same page about why any effort to communicate, in this case, needs to happen right away. People tend to think that not talking about things is an answer to a problem. It's honestly usually never the right answer to a problem, okay? And you're not alone if you felt this. Most people will think this until they know otherwise, right? And so humans naturally think that avoidance sometimes is the answer, but it's usually never the answer, because naturally people need to know what's going on. People need sort of resolution to their questions. And when you're not communicating, you're not giving people that sort of psychological satisfaction of an answer, right? Or of knowing what the truth really is. And usually having that is where people feel peace, right? Even in the face of a negative situation, right? And so the only way to really do that is to communicate. So you can never really communicate too much, right? I mean, if it's to the wrong audience, we're not talking about that, right? In a case like this, communication is basically your savior. And so doing it in an honest way is really important. Okay? What else? Where are we now? Okay. So number 25, that's important, right? This is all, we're in a change management situation, so everybody had that in the correct category. That was great. Number 7, bring in all office managers and directors for a briefing. Ensure they are all satisfied that the cutbacks are the best way to go. Okay, so why is this important? Why do we need to bring everybody in to ensure that the decision is the right thing? For those of you that said this should be in category 1, why? Well, your managers and your directors, should they not be on your guiding coalition? You want your key players on board. Everybody needs to be on the same page to ensure communication flows, right?
Yeah.
This is a pretty big company. We're dealing with, 40 offices? Okay. Make a video explaining the problem. So, okay, why is this important? Why do we want to make a video? Explaining the problems and the responses to them. Anyone? Why do we want to do this? No? No one? Yes.
It's easy to transfer the information.
Okay, so this is then part of what? It's part of our
Communication.
the communication effort, right? Exactly. So that's why that is helpful. Appointing a change manager, that's important, right, to ensure the process is smooth, so everyone did that properly in the category. Transition monitoring teams, most people had this, and then, everyone had it in either one or two, which is great. Again, this is part of your coordination, right? Ensuring that you've got the upward channels of communication. So that's important as well. Okay, let's look at category 2. Most people put this in category 1. Only one team put this in category 2. Again, this is the heart of what we're doing, right? We need to explain the purpose, the plan, and the roles people are going to be playing in the announced changes. But why is this in category 2 then 1? So group 1, do you want to let us know why you thought it was here?
Professor, for us, we were in group 6, we are also put on 1 as well.
This should be in category 2 though. So group 1, it's very close, right? Why should it be in category 2? So it's both worth doing. Category 1 just says you have to do it right away.
Right away.
Category 2 is just saying you need to start planning it because it's going to take more time. So what is it about number 17 that makes it better suited for category 2? For those of you that made the selection, what do you think? Well, because it's going to take time, right? It's not something you want to rush into. So the reason it's in category 2 is because, yes, you want to do it, but it will take time, and you have to do it properly, right? And so you've got to pace it out. That's why it's here. So anything in category 2 are things that are naturally going to take more time. You can't do them abruptly, and you can't jump into it, because then you're essentially setting yourself up for mistakes. Analyze who stands to lose what. That's really important. Again, that's a process that takes time. Okay, so that's why in category 2. Okay, managers getting a 2-hour emotional seminar on emotional impacts of change. So most people thought that this was worth doing, which was good. Sometimes I've had students say it's not worth doing, so I've had to get into that lecture. But why do you think this is worth doing? Because you all seem to think it's worth doing.
Because professor, managers are the one who will be conveying the message to their subordinates. So if they are not handling them properly and they are giving very straightforward answers or not being able to without training them like this properly, they will make a wrong impression.
Okay, good. So what is part of the challenge with this decision is going to cause a lot of what? People are getting news about a lot of changes that are potentially impacting their jobs, right? So you're going to get emotions, you're going to get anger, you might get depression, right? You're going to get a lot of negative emotional responses. And if managers don't understand how change emotionally impacts people, we've talked about what change does to people, right? It's painful. And when people are the recipients of a change, or sort of the embarking, or people are going to be impacted by change in a way that's potentially not in the way that they want or thought. Even for the people that are staying, not necessarily the people that are being terminated, there's going to be an emotional reaction to that, right? Because even for the people who stay, they are going to be uncertain about the future of their jobs, and they're going to wonder, well, am I next? Right? And so that emotional response could be in the form of anger, it could be sadness, depression. And what might happen if managers don't understand that those are natural responses to change, to impacts of change, they might assume that those sort of negative feelings and emotions maybe are just bad morale. Maybe they're just, employees not getting along or toxicity. Because negative emotions aren't always labeled correctly, right? Someone might be angry or sad because of an impact of change, and that, if you don't understand that could be the reason they're feeling that way, you might assume that their feelings are attributable to something else, like not being motivated or whatever it might be, right? Which could contribute to bad morale within the organization. So the point is, if you're not understanding the source of the emotion, you might not be able to address it properly. Okay, that's why this is important.
Yes, but that's the explanation for should be in category one, that's it should be important.
It's so to do it right away, so that's the only difference, right? So this is like, when we say number one, it's happening like immediately. Everything that's happening immediately, it has to do with the communication. Like, this isn't gonna happen right away, right? You've got to plan, there's some planning that has to go involved in putting on a seminar, right? Because naturally, you've got to get the right, coach or whoever, whether it's trainees, coaches, trainers, you've got to take the time to select, to make the right selections. They've got to make the presentation. You can't assume that that's ready to go. If it's ready to go because you've built this in the infrastructure in your organization, great, but it's probably not, right? So you probably are bringing in experts, you're probably bringing in, and the way this is framed in the case is the assumption that this is going to take some time to do. That's why you want to do it, and you want to do it right because you want to ensure that those managers understand these impacts, right? And so you want an effective, a seminar that's going to be effective, but it will take a little bit of planning, and that's the only reason it's in category 2. Again, category 1 are things that, like, essentially you do immediately. There's no time to plan. Okay, and so when we're dealing with a case like this, everything that goes to the heart of communication will happen immediately. Because that's your chance to, close the gap of time that the inconsistency sort of sits in the minds of others. Okay, and then, then you're moving on to these points. Whatever's happening in category 2, essentially you're moving on right away to after you've dealt with the communication pieces. Okay, so same thing with number 9, right? Having an internal website, again, is part of the communication effort, but this takes time. Because if you set up a website that actually creates more questions than it answers, you're going to have even more challenges to overcome. So spend the time to do it right, as opposed to doing it right away and making errors, okay? Okay, so number 20. Find career planning seminars to help people whose jobs are being threatened or lost because of the changes. So a few people, most people think this should be done. Group 5 says it shouldn't. So why do you think, for those of you that thought it's not important, do you think that this is not important? Number 20. Why is this not important?
If I was a staff, I would be interested.
Okay, so for those of you that think it is important, why is it important?
It's a good way to have communication out to a large group of people, but we thought it needs a dedicated team to set it up in time and money and all of that, which is why we said it is worth doing, it's daunting to do, but it's going to take some more time.
So it does take time, but why is it worth doing?
You can get information out to a large group of people at once. Like, I think you can put
So
real-time updates.
We're trying to help people whose jobs are being lost or threatened essentially find other opportunities or know where to go. Why do we care about that? Yes.
Shows the employees that even they are resident.
Exactly, right? And so this, again, is contributing to your credibility and reputation as a company. Because anytime you are, and again, you're right in that some employees just might not care. They might not be receptive to it. But the point is you are trying to, yes, you are giving people bad news. You are giving people information they don't want to hear. But even in that situation, you're still doing what you can to try to get them to exit the organization feeling as positively as possible. So instead of just terminating people and, bye, see you later, if you are making an effort to help them find their next step, help them find, the next sort of career, the next step in their career journey, and you're taking a little bit of effort to do that for them, they are going to feel better about you than they will if you didn't. And that increases the chance that they're not going to sort of leave and, work towards damaging your reputation in some way because they feel so ill about it. So you're not giving them the news they want maybe, but you're doing what you can to provide an alternative. And this is just any good client management strategy, right? As a lawyer, I've had many clients that I have declined to take on for whatever reason. Maybe I don't like the instructions that they're giving me. I don't feel that it's appropriate. And I say no. I've done that many times. But I don't just say no. I say no, and then I usually will provide them with the information of another lawyer to get a second opinion. So if they're questioning my opinion and my recommendation, I say, here, consult with this person, and usually that helps them hear that it's not just me that thinks that way. Because sometimes clients want what they want. They don't want to listen to what a lawyer says. But if you're pretty confident that your position is accurate, you send them to another lawyer, they hear it from someone else, then it's like, oh, okay, it's not, maybe this isn't the best way to go,
That's
right?
right.
So giving them that option, or maybe it's just a case that is not within my specialty. So I find someone who, you know, might take that on because it is their specialty and I provide their name. So I'm saying no, but I'm doing what I can to try and help that person leave my office feeling positively about their experience, even though I said no at the end and I couldn't give them what they came to me for. It's the same idea. It's just, you know, a way to serve clients in a way where you can't always give them what they want, but you can ensure that they're leaving that situation feeling as good as possible instead of just feeling rejected, right? That's the idea. And companies, actually more and more now are sort of implementing programs within their HR services to provide career counseling